All right, welcome back, everybody. I'd like to invite the great and powerful Phil Whittaker to the stage. He's going to talk to us about the importance of community, something that we should all be, I hope, at least a little familiar with. Please be upstanding and welcome Phil.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming and supporting me today. It really does mean a lot. I've done these talks quite a few times over about 3 or 4 years now, and I always start these talks with a story. And it's a story about how I was introduced to the Umbraco community. So I've been a developer for about 25 years now, and that's really showing my age. And for the first 16, 17 years of my career, I never got involved in any communities at all, any developer communities. I never did any networking, anything like that, because I'm really just too shy to go out and to meet people like that. I found it really hard when I was starting any new jobs. I found it hard to go into a room full of people that I didn't know, anything like that, really. And small talk was not, and still is not my strong suit at all. Running out of things to say is really easy for me to do. So I'm usually, to be honest, at a party, I'm usually the person that stood in the corner, drinking a beer, and not really contributing or talking to anybody. Somebody like this. So this is a ChatGPT created image. Now I could do a whole talk about this image and what it means. So ChatGPT automatically gave me 2 beers. I'm not quite sure about what it's saying about me here, but yes, anyway. So yes, this was me, stuck in a corner where everybody's around me having a great time, and I'm just not been able to communicate with anybody because I'm so shy about it. And this is like 5 years ago. This is what I would feel like when I was on stage. I could never do this like 5, 6 years ago, was stand up in front of everybody here and give this talk to you, because I was just absolutely so shy. The thought of standing up in front of a microphone and giving this is just absolutely terrifying, because I'm just a bit of an introvert, really, like a lot of other developers that are out there. And to be perfectly frank with you, what I'd rather be doing, not right now, but usually, is I'd rather be sat in a room surrounded by loads of monitors, and just coding away. That's my comfort zone. That's my forte. But about 6 or 7 years ago now, we'd created a package called Positional Content. I don't know whether everybody remembers that. And we were really proud of it. The team that I was working with at the time were really proud of it, and we wanted to take it out there and to share it, and we put a lot of effort into it. So I decided to go to a meetup to talk about sharing it with the people at the meetup and to see what people thought of it, which terrified me. So I built up the ideas, I built up the courage to go out there to do this, to share this. And the first 2 times, the meetup was cancelled because of snow. Ridiculous. So the third time, I went across the Pennines, which is a big set of hills in the UK, and I visited a town that I don't know at all. I went to a building that I don't know at all, called 26, and I went into the reception and went up the stairs, and I ended up feeling something like this. So I was walking into a room full of people that I didn't know who they were, and people would look at me, turning around and saying, who's this newbie here? Who's this person that's just turned up that we don't know who it is? Because everybody in the room knows each other. And that's what it felt like to me. So eventually I sat down and started talking to somebody, and they turned out to be really nice. And then I started talking about, eventually I started talking about the project we were working on and what it was doing. And they seemed to be really interested. And after a bit of conversation, they said to me, would you like to come and do a talk about this? And I now know, being a meetup organizer, that meetup organizers are always on the hunt for new talks and new speakers and new people. So I was a bit of a patsy, really, but it still felt really nice to be able to go and give a talk, or to be asked to go and give a talk. It's a bit of an ego boost, really, that somebody's interested that much in what you want to say. So I got the courage, and the next month I went and I sat in a room, like this. It was absolutely terrifying. The build-up to this was awful. 2 sleepless nights, etc. I had this in my head of it's going to be absolutely horrible. They're going to be judging me. They're going to be, and it was completely wrong. It's completely just anxiety kicking in. And what it actually turned out to be something a bit like this, really. So it was a group of people sat around on sofas, not as many people as that. I would like to have meetups that are that full every time. But a set of, we just sat around with a presentation in front of us, and we just chatted through it. It had slides, but we're dipping in and out of the slides. And it felt absolutely amazing. And people were really complimentary about what I was sharing, and they were really interested in seeing what I had to say. And they were talking to me about improvements I can make to it. And it was absolutely brilliant experience. Well, from that experience, the floodgates opened, because if anybody knows me, I'm just full of ideas all the time. And I just did talk after talk after talk. And then somehow, I've still not quite worked this out, I ended up being an admin for Leeds Manchester meetup. Don't know how that happened, which is pretty cool. So I started working with them, and I haven't looked back, really. I've talked at conferences all over the UK. I've spoken at Umbraco London UK Festival about 3 or 4 times, Umbraco Spark. I also helped organise Umbraco Manchester meetup with John, sat there. And I've been an Umbraco MVP for 4 years now. And that was an amazing experience. I don't do this for plaudits. This is a hobby for me. I don't get paid for it. I just enjoy doing it, enjoy working with other people. So to receive that email to say you've been rewarded an MVP, I remember it now. I'm thinking about it now as to what that happened and what that meant to me. It was absolutely amazing. It was really cool. So the next slide, I'd like to introduce the people that work with me on Umbraco Leeds. So Andy Neal, Ali Graham, Matt Wise, and Ollie Picton. Ollie's sat in the corner, hungover. And also the people who work with me in Umbraco Manchester meetup, Rachel Breeze and John Whittaker, who's sat there hungover again. So moving on to what I want to talk about in the talk, for the rest of the talk. And I went back and I started to consider where I was at the start of my career, the first 16 years of my career. And I found, I worked out that I was stuck in this thing I now call the company bubble. And the company bubble is an amazing thing. It's a structure that's set up for you there, where you go to work, you do some work, you get paid for it, you might talk to some people. And it's a really nice state of comfortable isolation. It's a comfort zone for you to work within. And that's all very well, but there are problems with that from my experience. So you'll be involved with the same people, the same technologies, the same processes, because if you're working within a company, the company is set up to be profitable. And it needs processes all the time to make that happen. Yep. So anything new that comes in, they need to work out whether it's going to affect the profit line or not. So it's already quite limited. And that limits your personal growth. Being in that environment limits your personal growth automatically. So being in that environment, again, means that ideas become recycled. The same things get repeated again and again and again. And that stifles your innovation and creativity within the organisation. And some organisations are better than others, but in my experience of working in places, that has been an issue. And then sometimes, unfortunately, you get left behind. So personally, I struggle with the transition from .NET Framework to .NET Core. I found that very hard to do because I'd been left behind, unfortunately. And it took me a lot to get over that. There are some other issues as well. So there is, especially in the UK, I don't know what it's like in Denmark, but in the UK, there is an epidemic of loneliness, especially around men. So I experienced this as well. So I went to university, I went to school, went to university, I had a great group of friends at university. It was an amazing experience. But then I left university. I left that cotton wool environment, and unfortunately, people got married, they moved to different towns, they moved to different villages, they had children, they got jobs that were not the same as mine, And suddenly I found that it was 2 years before I spoke to any of these people. And that's really sad. And it was the structured environment, the education structured environment, that had allowed me to make those connections. And unfortunately, men find it a lot harder to socialize and make friends than women. I find that very, very difficult to do. And I know in my circle, our friends, the women usually, they have quite a few friends. And the men, a lot of the men, especially if they're developers or designers or somebody introverted, they really, really, really struggle with that. And they don't have a great friendship circle, which is really hard. And unfortunately, many developers are introverted, and that just compounds these issues. And that can lead to poor mental health as well, and being even more morbid. The suicide rate among men between ages 35 and 55 in the UK is absolutely ridiculous. Yep. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not going to solve, and meetups and the community are going to solve any of these things at all, but any sort of help towards that, any support environment can make some of these things better. And if people have serious issues, then they obviously need to go to seek professional help. But if we can give that support environment, it might stop the spiral down into these kind of horrible things. So what's the advantages of breaking out of the bubble? Well, it's about seeing other perspectives and approaches. As soon as you talk to people who are sharing their own ideas about how they're thinking about things and how they do things, then you get a different perspective. And that can help you gain the space to grow, because you can take some of those ideas and you bring them into your own way of thinking. And then it allows you to create connections into the outside of the workspace. And I use these connections all the time. It's amazing for me. So my business had an issue last year, and I reached out into my network, and it was brilliant. It was a support environment I had around me. And I wouldn't have had it without any of this, really. And I wouldn't have had it in my first 16 years of my career, because I didn't have a network. I didn't have support at all around me. So how do you gain this outside perspective? Well, you could read some blogs or books. You could watch some videos or some tutorials. You could follow people on social media. But all of these seem a little bit too lurking to me. There's nothing interactive, or very little interactive, or even if it is interactive, then it's not on a very quick loop at all. So for me, getting involved in a local community, developer community, is a much better way to do that, because you get that interaction. You're able to talk to people about your ideas. You're able to question other people's ideas. You're able to share things and get feedback from people pretty quickly. And that might not be in person. That might be on something like Discord as well. So I'd like to introduce talk about the meetups a little bit and what they actually mean. And so meetups, I think, as Emma said in the keynote, they're very much the grassroots of the Umbraco community. This picture was taken, I did get Andy's permission to show this. This picture was taken in a lift at Auto Trader in Manchester, and everybody seems pretty happy there, to be honest. So these meetups, they tend to be very small gatherings. And I find that if you go above sort of 30 or 40 people, it gets too daunting, the meetups. It's hard for people to split off, to get into groups. It's very hard for people to appreciate and for you to meet everybody in that group. And that walk into a room full of people gets even harder to do. So the smaller it is, actually, really, the better it is. Over about 10 people, it gets quite nice. And that's what we have at our meetups. People have similar interests. I'm very keen on this. So if I walk into an Umbraco meetup, I know I'm going to meet people that like and know Umbraco, so I automatically know that I can talk to people. So that takes the small talk out of the equation before we even started. Now, in the last couple of years, I've done loads and loads of networking events, and you're parachuted into a room of people that you don't know, that probably don't do the same jobs as you, So, I mean, what do I have in common with an architect? Absolutely nothing. So I have to fall back on my small talk then, and that's never going to end well for me at all. It's going to end up sat in a corner. You'll learn new things. So every time I go to a meetup, pretty much, somebody will say something that will ping off an idea. It may be I'll hear something in the corner that somebody said about a new package that they've found. Yeah, and I'll take that back and I'll go, wow, this is brilliant. This explodes my view on things. So you'll learn new things all the time. And then it's very important for me that it's a safe space to socialize. So this is absolutely key to what we do, and I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. So this is the code of conduct that we show at every meetup that we run. It's not something that we made up. It's probably similar to the code of conduct here, but it's really, really important. It gives us guardrails. Now, I've been running these for a long time, meetups, and I've never had a problem. I'm pretty certain that 99% of Umbraco people are so nice that I'll never have a problem anyway. But it's important to have that guardrail there. And that's because of this. So this is a quote from a member of our community that I spoke to. When I was going to my first Umbraco Manchester meetup, I was a bit worried that I wouldn't fit in, being a new developer and also pretty visibly queer. But I found the environment to be friendly and open and not at all what I was worried about from the get-go. And the code of conduct and the way that we run these meetups, this is exactly what we want to achieve. We want to achieve that openness and that ability for anybody to come in here and just take part. And that's absolutely key. So every meetup lots and lots of meetups that are out there have talks. And we're no exception. So we'll have deep dives into Umbraco features. We'll not just do Umbraco, we'll do a bit of .NET stuff, a bit of DevOps stuff. And sometimes we'll have some shorter highlights, talks highlighting features or new tools. John's done one on Poly and things like that. And that's great, but we'd like to take it a little bit further. Because we want to create an environment that helps everybody to grow. Earlier on, I spoke about interactivity, and if you go and see a talk with somebody, I don't think that's very interactive, really, because you go and speak to somebody, and somebody might ask a question, but generally that doesn't happen. And you might go and see them afterwards and have a conversation about it, but I guarantee that for every person that goes to speak to the speaker, there are 4 people that don't have the nerve to go and do it. So I want to create a much more growth-friendly environment. Because at the end of the day, everybody has an equal voice, and I want to share that. I want to make sure everybody has an equal voice, and they know it, and they're capable of going out there and giving their voice and making their voice heard. Because absolutely sharing is the most positive thing you can possibly do. Sharing your ideas, sharing your experiences, and talking to others about it, it's a rocket ship to your growth, to your what you're going to do with your life and your personal outlook, really. So yeah, talking about experiences is the most key, is the most important thing within this, and giving that people a forum to be able to do that as well. I almost took this out, but I think it's the most important thing. It's passion, and I know loads of people. I am ridiculously passionate about Umbraco stuff, and it's really important that passion is allowed to develop, to blossom, and isn't stifled at all. And doing that in an environment where there's just a few people and everybody's allowed to share all the time without the structures of just speaking, of the standard speaking sort of format is really key. And what I'm really keen on is leading by example. So I do this a lot. So I'll speak at our meetups a lot. If there is a speaker that comes in to our meetup, then I'm the first person to ask the question. Because I want to get the ball rolling. I want to grease the wheels. I want to start things moving in the right direction. Leading by example is absolutely important. I know lots of meetup organisers who like to take a back seat, and I did that for a long time, but I don't think that's the right way to do it at all. So we have some discussions. So we have group discussions as well. These are meetup styles that we use to expand, help people to grow and help people to share on their environment. So one of the things that we started doing is a group discussion, and one of the group discussions we did was how to structure your content in Umbraco. Now that's a very wide-ranging subject matter with lots of possibilities, because at the end of the day, Umbraco is this toolkit that you can do anything with. So the amount of ideas and differences that we had in this conversation, which lasted for about 90 minutes, was incredible. And I learnt loads, and everybody in the audience learnt loads, and it was great to see. And we even had some people arguing with each other about, no, you should do it like this and do it like this. And it's a really productive thing to get out there. So what we'll do is we'll create a series of of slides, and John and I will walk through them, and then we'll let anybody contribute at any time. If somebody wants to talk for 10 minutes, that's absolutely fine. It's completely open, and it really helps. And by the end of this discussion, you'll usually end up with 80 to 90% of the people talking, which is exactly what I want, because even if somebody's not talked, then they can have a discussion with people. They've got something that they can start conversations with. We also have lightning talks. The idea behind the lightning talk is to help first-time speakers to come and to give a talk. It can be on absolutely everything, and I'm absolutely key that needs to be a supportive and non-judgmental environment. If something goes wrong, it does not matter at all. I want to create this armchair environment that I experienced at the start of my journey, and make that possible for other people. So I went to an event a couple of years ago now, lightning talks again, and this poor woman that came on the stage, they had all the slides beforehand, and they changed the order of every slide in her talk. That is absolutely the worst thing that could possibly happen to you on any talk that you're doing. No matter, even your first talk is just terrifying that. And she handled it with grace and with dignity and with humility. With humility. And the audience was behind her. There was a big audience there as well. And she got through it, and it was incredible to see. Now she does a talk from now on. She's never going to get anything as bad as that at all. We do workshops as well. I did one yesterday. I'll like to run these very, very relaxed again. Follow along coding. We're there to learn together. The feedback that I had from doing these workshops, I was talking about Umbraco 14 and explaining all the new technologies behind it, was, Phil, it feels like you are 2 steps ahead of us, because I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, and you're just showing us, you're just taking the fear away from it. That's exactly what I want to do, is just give you the starting point so that you can go and explore, so you don't have to take those first steps yourself, which is super cool. I also do some outreach stuff, so I'll go inside people's company bubbles. So I'll go in at lunchtime or whatever, and I'll meet developers, and I'll say to them, what do you want to know about meetups? Because not many people know what actually happens in them. I'm surprised at that. So, and they're like, I'm a bit scared to go, to be honest. I'm like, well, it's 10 people sat around eating pizzas, drinking beer, and having a chat. It's nothing scary about that, really. So if you take that out of it, that fear out of it, then you get people turning up. I also want to be that friendly face. So if I go back to right at the start of my talk and say, I don't want to have people walk into a room where they don't know anybody. If they can walk into a room and they know me, then I can have a conversation with them and I can say, have you met this person? And that's it. That takes that worry out of it as much as it possibly can. Because what I want to do at the end of the day is create your own personal support network so that we can start doing things like coaching and mentoring. So I've helped people start to set up packages, things like that. I also like to encourage collaboration. So I work with John on lots of talks. We did the workshop together yesterday. And if you're doing a task, if you're working on something on a project outside of work, it's amazing. You get all of those ideas that they have and the way that they're working at their company, and you bring them together, and you just grow so much quicker. You just see so many different perspectives by working together on something to a common goal. It's really, really great. And then finally, on this, your local network, your local developer community doesn't stay local. When you come to events like this, you bring it with you. And that's the most important thing. I've got 5 people in the room now who I know really well, who I know are here to support me. And I wouldn't have that without the local community around me. And it means so much to me, that. Because I don't want anybody in our community to feel alone or unsupported, or to be that person in the corner drinking 2 beers, yep, and not talking to anybody, because that's just horrible. So why does all this matter at the end of the day? Well, it leads to healthier and happier people. So if I compared myself to how I was 8, 9 years ago, I'm so much more happier. I'm so much more healthier. My mental outlook is so much better because I know I have those people around me. I know I have those people I can depend upon. It turns people into better communicators. So you can only become a better communicator if you communicate, if you practice communication all the time. And you can only do that if you're actually talking to other people. And by going to meetups and those types of events, you're already talking, you're already communicating, and that by its very nature will make you a better communicator. And that all this will lead to individual growth. I've experienced it, and I want to help other people experience it, which is why I spend a bit of time on looking after meetups and helping other people. And finally on this, and I was doing these slides, this is something new I've added, and what it came down to is, what does it boil down to, right at the essence of it? And that was an absolute sense of belonging. Now, that's not something you can manufacture. It's not something you can bottle or sell. It's something that happens naturally. It's something that's really important to me, and that's what this community has given me, a sense of belonging into a group of people, and that's absolutely brilliant. And I really thank Umbraco and the possibilities that this has given me. So finally, there was a slightly different slide with Emma's stuff earlier on, talking about the Umbraco community and a unique position that we're in. So we have this incredible thing that's been set up and going. I don't know any other single-purpose piece of software that has these levels of community support anywhere in the world. 7,000 members, 35 meetups, 11 countries. Like even .NET, they have probably double that, but not the same kind of on a single piece of software. So I think that deserves a round of applause. Absolutely. So thank you very much.